Time is the one thing we can never get back. Unlike money, possessions, or even lost opportunities, once a moment passes, it's gone forever. We often take time for granted, assuming there will always be more of it. We act as if we have an unlimited supply, as if we can hit a pause button whenever we choose. But the reality is, every second that ticks away is a second we will never experience again. No amount of effort, no amount of money, no amount of regret can bring back time that has already passed. Yet, despite its irreplaceable nature, time is often the asset we waste the most. We waste it on things that don't add value to our lives, on people who don't truly care about us, on pursuits that don't align with what we truly want. We waste time being afraid, overthinking decisions, waiting for the right moment that never seems to arrive. We waste time in anger, in regret, in comparison, in distraction. And the cruel irony is that most of us don't realize how much time we've wasted until it's too late. Think about how we treat money. We work for it, we save it, we invest it. If we lose money, we feel the loss deeply. We budget, we plan, we track every expense because we understand its value. And yet, time, something far more precious, is given away freely, carelessly, as if we have an infinite amount stored away for later. We don't check where our time is going the way we check our bank accounts. We don't budget our hours with the same urgency as we do our finances. We don't panic when we realize we've wasted an entire day, the way we would if we lost an entire paycheck. But maybe we should. Because the truth is, money can be replaced. A lost job can be regained. A missed business opportunity can lead to another. Even relationships can often be mended with time. But time itself, once it's gone, it's gone. There is no refund, no second chance, no way to earn more of it. And the scariest part, none of us know how much of it we actually have. We live under the illusion that there will always be more time, that we will get to the things we truly want to do someday, but someday is not a guarantee. We say, I'll call them later, I'll start tomorrow, I'll do it when the timing is right. But time doesn't wait for us to be ready. It moves forward, whether we use it wisely or not. We put off the things that truly matter, spending time with loved ones, pursuing our dreams, prioritizing our health, because we assume we'll have time later. But what happens when later doesn't come? What happens when the people we thought would always be there are suddenly gone? What happens when the dreams we put off fade into impossibilities? What happens when we look back and realize we spent years focusing on the wrong things? The world is full of distractions, and in many ways, modern life is designed to steal our time without us even noticing. Social media, endless emails, binge-watching television, mindless scrolling, these things consume hours, even days of our lives. And while none of these things are inherently bad, the problem comes when we allow them to take priority over the things that actually matter. How often do we find ourselves saying, just 5 more minutes, only to realize an hour has passed? How often do we check our phones for one notification and end up losing precious time to pointless browsing? How often do we sit down to do something meaningful only to be pulled away by distractions that add no real value to our lives? And then there's the time we lose to indecision. We hesitate, we overthink, we analyze every possible outcome before taking a single step. We tell ourselves we need to wait for the perfect moment, that we need more preparation, that we need absolute certainty before moving forward. But while we sit there, waiting for everything to align, time keeps moving. The truth is, there is no perfect moment. There is no ideal set of circumstances. There is only now, and every second spent waiting is a second lost forever. Then there's the time we spend on things that don't align with what we truly want. How often do we say yes to things we don't actually care about? How often do we fill our schedules with obligations that drain us instead of fulfilling us? We commit to things out of guilt, out of obligation, out of fear of disappointing others. We say yes to extra work, to social events we don't enjoy, to relationships that no longer serve us. And in doing so, we trade our most valuable resource, our time, for things that don't truly matter to us. And then there's the time lost to regret, the hours spent replaying past mistakes, the days wasted dwelling on what could have been, the energy drained by things we cannot change. Regret is one of the most insidious thieves of time because it doesn't just steal our present, it keeps us trapped in the past. And yet no amount of overthinking, no amount of wishing things had gone differently will ever bring back the moments that have already passed. We need to start treating time like the precious asset it is. We need to guard it, protect it, and spend it wisely. Because at the end of the day, time is the currency of life. How we spend it determines the kind of life we live. Fear and perfectionism are two of the most deceptive and dangerous thieves of time. They don't announce their arrival with loud warnings. They don't demand immediate attention. Instead, they creep into our lives quietly, disguising themselves as caution, high standards, or responsible decision-making. But make no mistake, these two forces steal more time from us than any external distraction ever could. They trap us in hesitation, keep us stuck in endless preparation, and convince us that now is never the right time to start. Fear is a master manipulator. It whispers in our ears, reminding us of every possible thing that could go wrong. It magnifies our self-doubt, making us question whether we're good enough, smart enough, or strong enough to succeed. Fear convinces us that failure is something to be avoided at all costs, that stepping outside of our comfort zones is too risky, and that we should wait for the perfect moment before taking action. But here's the problem. There is no perfect moment. How many times have we told ourselves, I'll do it when I feel ready? How many times have we waited for more experience, more confidence, more certainty before making a move? And how many times has that perfect moment never arrived? That's because fear is never satisfied. It will always find a new excuse to keep us waiting, a new reason why now isn't the right time. Perfectionism is just as dangerous, if not more so. It masquerades as a virtue, making us believe that we're simply holding ourselves to high standards, that we're striving for excellence. But in reality, perfectionism is often just fear in disguise. It tells us that if something isn't flawless, it's not worth doing. It convinces us that mistakes are unacceptable and that anything less than perfection is failure. And so instead of moving forward, we stay stuck in an endless cycle of tweaking, refining, and second guessing. Think about how much time we lose to perfectionism. We rewrite the same email 10 times, afraid that one wrong word will make us look unprofessional. We spend hours overthinking a social media post, worried about how others will perceive us. We hold off on pursuing our dreams because we feel like we need to learn more, practice more, or prepare more before we can even begin. And in doing so, we let perfectionism steal the one thing we can never get back: our time. The most damaging aspect of perfectionism is that it creates a false illusion of productivity. It makes us feel like we're making progress when, in reality, we're just spinning our wheels. We get stuck in a loop of endless refinement, always finding one more thing to fix, one more adjustment to make. And the longer we stay in that cycle, the harder it becomes to break free. Fear and perfectionism work together to keep us paralyzed. Fear tells us that we're not ready, and perfectionism tells us that if we're not going to do it perfectly, we shouldn't do it at all. And so we wait. We wait for more experience, more knowledge, more confidence. We wait for external validation, for someone to tell us that we're finally good enough. We wait for the right conditions, the right resources, the right moment. And as we wait, time slips away. Fear doesn't just steal time, it steals opportunities. It stops us from applying for jobs we want, from starting businesses, from pursuing creative projects, from speaking up, from taking risks. It convinces us that rejection and failure are unbearable, when in reality, they are just part of the process. Every time we let fear hold us back, we are choosing to stay stuck instead of growing, to stay comfortable instead of reaching for something greater. Perfectionism does the same thing. It tricks us into believing that if we can't do something perfectly, we shouldn't do it at all. But perfection is an illusion. There is no perfect decision, no perfect moment, no perfect outcome. The pursuit of perfection often leads to procrastination, which leads to inaction, which leads to regret. We spend so much time trying to get everything just right that we never actually finish what we start. Or worse, we never even begin. Fear and perfectionism don't just steal our time in the present, they create a ripple effect that impacts our future. Every time we let them win, we reinforce the belief that we aren't ready, that we aren't capable, that we aren't enough. And the more we give in to those thoughts, the harder it becomes to break free. Think about all the things we could have done if fear and perfectionism hadn't held us back. Think about the ideas that never turned into reality, the dreams that never materialized, the chances we never took. How much time have we already lost? How many opportunities have we let slip away because we were too afraid to try? Fear and perfectionism are ruthless thieves, but they don't announce their presence with urgency. They don't demand our attention the way an overflowing inbox or a ringing phone does. Instead, they quietly chip away at our time, day by day, decision by decision, until we look back and realize just how much we've lost. Distraction is everywhere. It lurks in our pockets, in our notifications, in our endless to-do lists. It disguises itself as entertainment, productivity, and even self-care. It pulls us away from what truly matters, eating away at our time in small, seemingly insignificant increments. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, an hour lost without even realizing it. And before we know it, days, months, and even years slip through our fingers. Purpose, on the other hand, is clear. It's focused. It gives direction and meaning to our time. But purpose is not as loud as distraction. It doesn't ping, vibrate, or flood our screens with urgent reminders. It requires effort. It demands intentionality. And in a world overflowing with distractions, choosing purpose over mindless activity is one of the greatest challenges we face. Distraction's easy. It requires no effort, no commitment, no real investment. It's as simple as picking up our phones, scrolling through endless feeds, clicking on another video, or binge watching another show. It masquerades as relaxation, but more often than not, it leaves us feeling drained, scattered, and unfulfilled. It convinces us that we are just taking a break, when in reality, we are allowing precious time to slip away. The scariest thing about distraction is that it feels productive. We answer emails, respond to messages, check the news, and tell ourselves that we're staying informed and engaged. But how often do these distractions align with our bigger goals? How often do they contribute to the things that actually matter to us? More often than not, they don't. Instead, they pull us further from the deep, meaningful work that requires our full attention. Purpose, on the other hand, is demanding. It asks us to make deliberate choices about how we spend our time. It requires us to block out the noise, to say no to distractions, and to stay focused on what truly matters. And that is not easy. It is far easier to react to whatever grabs our attention in the moment than it is to sit down and do the work that moves us closer to our goals. Distraction and purpose are constantly in competition. Every time we pick up our phones, instead of engaging in meaningful work, distraction wins. Every time we allow ourselves to get lost in trivial tasks instead of making progress on what truly matters, distraction wins. Every time we let someone else's priorities take precedence over our own, distraction wins. And with every victory, distraction takes a little more of our time, our focus, and our potential. One of the most dangerous aspects of distraction is that it creates the illusion of busyness. We feel like we are accomplishing something simply because we are doing something. But not all activity is productive. Not all movement is progress. Just because we are busy doesn't mean we are working towards something meaningful. Purpose is different. Purpose is intentional. It is about knowing what truly matters and making the conscious decision to prioritize it. It is about cutting through the noise, identifying our core values, and aligning our actions with them. It is about choosing depth over distraction, meaning over mindless activity, and long-term fulfillment over short-term gratification. It is about compassion, conversation, recognition over short-term gratification. The modern world is designed for distraction. Social media platforms are built to keep us engaged for as long as possible. Streaming services autoplay the next episode before we have time to reconsider. Advertisements, notifications, and breaking news updates are constantly fighting for our attention. And in this environment, staying focused on our purpose requires more than just good intentions. It requires discipline. It requires us to set boundaries, to protect our time, and to be intentional about where we direct our energy. It requires us to recognize when we are being pulled into distractions and to consciously redirect ourselves back to what truly matters. It requires us to take control of our time instead of letting external forces dictate how we spend it. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. The difference between those who live with purpose and those who are constantly overwhelmed by distractions is not the amount of time they have, it's how they use it. Those who prioritize purpose understand that time is their most valuable asset, and they guard it fiercely. They know that every minute spent on meaningless distractions is a minute that could have been spent on something meaningful. Distraction is seductive. It is always there, ready to pull us away from our goals, our dreams, and our deeper sense of purpose. It doesn't demand much from us. Just a little time, a little attention, a little focus. But over time, those small distractions add up. They accumulate into lost days, lost opportunities, lost potential. Purpose is harder. It asks us to resist the easy path. It requires us to stay disciplined, to stay committed, and to stay focused on what truly matters. It asks us to be present, to engage fully in the work that moves us forward, and to resist the urge to be pulled in 100 different directions. And in a world full of distractions, that is not easy. Life moves fast. One moment we are caught up in the whirlwind of daily responsibilities, meetings, deadlines, errands, endless to-do lists. And the next, we look back and wonder where all the time went. We tell ourselves that we'll call that old friend soon, that we'll visit family when things settle down, that we'll spend more time with our kids when work isn't so demanding. But the truth is, life isn't really slows down. Time doesn't pause for us to catch up. And too often, by the time we realize what truly mattered, it's already too late. Regret is a heavy burden, and nothing fuels it more than missed opportunities to connect with the people we love. When we look back on our lives, we won't remember the extra hours we spent at work, the emails we sent, or the social media posts we scrolled through. What we will remember are the moments of laughter, the deep conversations, the times when we showed up for someone who needed us. And if we let those moments slip away in favor of things that don't truly matter, regret will be waiting for us at the end of the road. We live in a world that constantly pulls us away from meaningful connection. Technology makes it easier than ever to stay in touch, yet somehow we feel more disconnected than ever. We send quick texts instead of making phone calls. We like and comment on social media instead of having real conversations. We assume that because we see updates on someone's life, we are still part of it, that there is a vast difference between knowing what's happening in someone's life and actually being present in it. Connection requires effort. It requires us to step away from distractions, to prioritize people over productivity, and to make time for what truly matters. But too often, we convince ourselves that we don't have time. We are too busy, too tired, too caught up in our routines. We tell ourselves that we'll make time later, that we'll visit next weekend, that we'll call tomorrow. But later has a way of turning into never. And one day we wake up and realize that the people we love have drifted away, not because they wanted to, but because we never made the effort to hold on. Regret is relentless. It doesn't let us go back and fix what we missed. It doesn't allow us to rewrite the past. It only reminds us of what we lost, the birthdays we skipped, the important conversations we never had, the moments we let slip by while we were too busy focusing on things that didn't truly matter. And the worst part, by the time we realize what we should have done differently, the chance to do it is often gone. We often assume that the people in our lives will always be there, that our parents will always be one phone call away, that our friends will always be ready to pick up where we left off, that our kids will always be waiting for us to have time for them. But life is unpredictable. People move away, relationships fade, time runs out. And the truth is, we don't get endless chances to make things right. It's easy to get caught up in our own lives, to assume that the people we care about know how we feel, that they understand why we're so busy, that they'll always be there when we're finally ready to slow down and connect. But the reality is, relationships don't sustain themselves. They require attention, presence, and effort. And when we neglect them for too long, we risk losing them altogether. Think about the moments that have meant the most in your life. Chances are they aren't the ones spent working late, stressing over deadlines, or scrolling through your phone. They are the moments spent with people, laughing with friends, talking late into the night, sharing meals, supporting each other through hard times. These are the moments that truly matter. And yet we let them slip away, believing that we'll always have more time. But time doesn't wait. It moves forward, whether we are paying attention or not. And every moment we don't spend nurturing our relationships is a moment we can never get back. We will all face regret at some point in our lives. It is inevitable. But the deepest regrets are not about things we did. They are about the things we didn't do. The calls we never made, the apologies we never gave, the time we never set aside. And while we can't change the past, we can make a choice about how we move forward. Connection is what gives life meaning. It is what makes all the hard work, all the struggles, all the sacrifices worth it. Without it, success feels empty, achievements feel meaningless, and life feels lonely. And yet, so many of us spend our days prioritizing things that, in the end, won't matter at all. We often think that love and connection should be effortless, that the right people will always be there no matter what. But real connection requires intention. It requires showing up even when it's inconvenient. It requires choosing people over distractions, presence over productivity, and relationships over routine. And in a world that constantly pulls us in 100 different directions, making that choice is harder than ever. We don't have endless time. We don't get unlimited chances to show up for the people we love. Every missed moment is one we will never get back. And the hardest part of regret is knowing that we had a choice. Knowing that we could have picked up the phone, we could have made time, we could have been there, but we didn't. And once those chances are gone, no amount of wishing can bring them back.